Whether or not you have somebody to celebrate it with, I hope you're having a wonderful Valentine's Day. Hello beautiful people, my name is Venti and today I'm going to be bringing you a Valentine themed video in that I'm going to be telling you my top 5 book crushes of my past reading year, so of 2024. Maybe it's just that I'm picking the wrong books to read, but of late I've been having a harder and harder time coming up with book crushes, like seeing a character on page and getting those like butterfly in my tummy feelings about them, which is kind of a shame because it used to happen all of the time. And I wonder if part of it's just that I'm getting older and part of it is just that no one's writing yearning like they used to. I used to just eat up a yearning sort of book. But I had something of an upswing as far as that whole having a book crush thing went in 2024. And I have a collection of 5 actual guys to talk to you about today. I'm going to start it off with 2 honorable mentions of a sort. The first being Elizabeth from Richard Osman's The Thursday Murder Club series. Elizabeth is a heptagenarian who I believe was part of MI6 or whatever other secret organization there is in England that does like spy work, who now lives in a retirement community with her husband and several of her closest friends when they all get together and form this Thursday Murder Club, wherein they solve cold cases from around their general area. Elizabeth is lovely and spunky, and she doesn't really take no for an answer and always finds a way to like get herself into a situation that really shouldn't be possible for her to like wiggle herself into. She is not the most like charismatic of the bunch, but I really enjoy her drive and all of her crazy stories about her life. And I also am really fond of the fact that she's kind of awkward with her feelings and has a hard time explaining to others how much they mean to her. I just find that to be incredibly sweet. But more than anything, and the reason that I can't really place her as a book crush because I just love her so much with her existing partner, is that she is very, very much happily married, and her relationship with her husband is one of the sweetest that I've ever read about. I think Richard Osman absolutely nails character writing for the entirety of the characters in the Thursday Murder Club. It's sort of why I flew through that series last year. And some of my favorite and the most tender scenes of the series as a whole were the ones wherein Elizabeth and her husband interacted with one another. I just think they're great. I just think they're great for each other, and I do have a huge crush on her. Would that she weren't just so incredibly straight and also fictional. And my second honorable mention is Everybody in the Witchland series by Susan Dennard. This one maybe doesn't count because I didn't officially read one of the Witchlands books this past year, but I'm always constantly thinking about them. It's just Dragon Age meets Avatar: The Last Airbender meets wonderful female friendships meets just everything good about epic fantasy meets, I've not read a Sanderson book, so take this with a grain of salt, but it meets the sort of quality of ending that a Sanderlanche is purported to bring. I just think The Witchlands is great, and I think all the characters within it are super hot, really great, very much worthy of crushes, and I am so excited to get to show you guys today the cover reveal for the final book in the series, Witchlight. This finale to the Witchland series is going to bring all of these threads that Susan has weaved together to a close and bring us deeply satisfying character arcs for folks like Safi and Merrick and Isolde and Adawan and Vivia and Styx and Vanessa. All of my darlings are going to have their arcs caught up and all together. The reason they are honorable mentions today is because, again, like with Elizabeth and her husband, I really love the ships in this book. Susan's doing yearning like nobody else. I really love all of the characters with the people that Susan has paired them with, and I'm super excited to see how those arcs are all going to conclude. Witchlight is available for pre-order right now. I'll have links in the description box where you can get yourself a copy pre-ordered. It will be out on November the 4th in the US and November the 6th in the UK, so just make sure that you are pre-ordering the right version for your neck of the woods. And now that I'm adequately hyped up and flustered about all of these wonderful, crush-worthy books and characters, let me finally get to my top 5 book crushes of 2024. In the number 5 spot, we have Constanza from S.T. Gibson's A Dowry of Blood. This is a reimagining of the story of Dracula as told from the point of view of Dracula's 3 wives, as they get disillusioned with the idea of Dracula's allure and power and prestige and realize his behavior toward them for what it is, and that is abuse, as they decide to get out from under his thumb and begin to live their own lives. Constanza is the first of Dracula's wives, and she is the primary point of view character we follow throughout the story. And I chose her in specific of all of the characters for my book crush. Well, there wasn't really much of an element of choice. She just sort of won my heart over the moment she appeared on page. But it was because from the very start of her being, not just as a vampire, but even when she was a human, she was a being of such like kind goodness, but also this desire to see the world and have agency and sort of experience her life to its biggest and fullest potential. I really love a character who, even though the arc and the point of their story is them regaining and reasserting their agency, I love a character who always has that sort of bubbling underneath, this desire to be their own person and to discover what their place is in the world and what the world is like at large. I'm not personally somebody who is content to exist in small boxes. I always want to see what is beyond, see what the world has to offer, and I'm really drawn to characters who share that sort of trait. And even when Constanza is sort of making concessions to herself because of what Dracula is putting her through, underneath all of that, and despite all of the loyalty that she has for him, she still has this sort of yearning to see the world beyond, and I was really, really pleased for her when she finally got to have that toward the end of the book. In addition, I really enjoyed Constanza's loyalty, not just to Dracula, but to the other partners of his as well. I feel like she was very much a caretaker and a ringleader for all of them, sort of the beating heart at the center of this polycule. Even when the others veered toward the ugly, she never lost the kind core of herself and always made sure to make room for taking care of other people. I just thought it was a really admirable trait. She made me kick my little feet, and I was so happy for her by the end of her arc. I think she's lovely. I would read a dozen books narrated by her. Well done, S.T. Gibson. In place number 4, we have Noemi from Silvia Moreno Garcia's Mexican Gothic. When she begins to get strange and kind of frightening letters from her recently married off cousin, Noemi decides to leave her glamorous, beautiful debutante life in Mexico City behind to figure out what's going on with the member of her family and rescue her should there be a problem arising around her and the sort of colonizer white family that she's married into. When she gets to their manor house, Noemi immediately realizes that something is very, very wrong, not just with this family and this house, but with her cousin as well, and she will not stop until she gets to the bottom of what is happening and manages to rescue her blood. I think Noemi is stunning. I mean, it's canon that she is. In the text of the book, she is a glamorous debutante. Everybody wants to hang out with her. She walks into a room and she lights it up. She absolutely sparkles and shines, and at no point is she worried about what other people are looking like and stuff. She is a star, right? She is not concerned about how other people are shining. She's just shining for herself, and she can't help it if all eyes in the room are drawn to her, including my own. And though people will dismiss her often for being this fun and flirtatious and vibrant and just sort of carefree and wonderful spirit, she is also tremendously intelligent. She's very aware of how she's perceived and knows how to use it to her advantage. And she's incredibly driven, not just in the pursuit of her education and her interests, but also with the deep, deep loyalty she has and the tremendous amount of family values she has. Noemi will simply do whatever it takes to protect her loved ones from any harm, even if it means doing a slightly less calculated, more impulsive, not quite so intelligent thing, because more so than smart, she is driven and loyal and led by her heart. And I think that that's wonderful in any sort of character. Again, I think she had me kicking my little feet and twirling my hair and being like, oh, I like her. I like her a lot. I think she's great. I think she's neat. And more importantly than any of it, she's never really insecure in herself. While everything else is collapsing around her and when everything kind of goes crazy, Noemi still has a deep foundation of knowing who she is. She's unshakable in the confidence that she has of herself. Like anybody, she has her insecurities, but she doesn't really let those rule her. She comes from a very stable understanding of who she is, and other people's opinions, though they can hurt her to varying degrees if they are misunderstanding her or where she's coming from, at the end of the day, she's going to do what she's got to do. She knows herself, she loves herself, and she's not going to let anybody stop her or tell her that the way she is wrong. She's going to do it. She's going to succeed. And screw you if you try to get in her way. I think that's fabulous. In spot number 3, we have Justin from Abby Jimenez's Just for the Summer. Justin is unique for several reasons. One, he's a character from the only proper contemporary book on this list. It's a romance where the others are all somewhere in the speculative fiction space. He is the only dude on this list. And 3, he is somehow succeeding, despite having the curse of being a dude with a name that begins with J, in making me choose a man over a bear. Simply unheard of for me. But Abby Jimenez did that. Just for the Summer follows Justin as well as a woman named Emma. The two of them connect after meeting online, sharing their woes of having a dating curse, wherein every time they date somebody, that person immediately goes off to meet the one, like the person that they end up spending the rest of their life with, getting married, etc. And both Justin and Emma are kind of sick of always being the step before the end. So through a series of events, they decide to meet up and kind of date so that they can finally break the curse on on one another. What neither of them maybe expect is for them to absolutely fall hard for each other, which is what happens, and obviously the story goes from there. Justin is a forest of green flags, and I was wary of that at first. Justin is very much a caretaker and a caregiver. He makes sure to stay on the right side of people's boundaries. He's really fun and fun-loving, but underneath all of that, he has this foundation of stability and this core sense of love for his family and the values that keep them all together. Are you sensing a pattern for what I'm into yet? And I was worried upon reading him that I would end up finding him to be like incredibly bland. As much as I love a male lead who's just absolutely obsessed with the female lead, usually in romance books like that, I end up kind of maxing out at like a sort of 3-star-ish area. It becomes a less memorable thing for me. However, Justin's degrees of personal complexity ended up working to counter that. Yes, he's got a tremendous amount of loyalty, but he also has some resentment paired with it, but it doesn't stop him from doing the right thing. And though he is deeply respectful of other people's boundaries and will never push on those, he's not a pushover. It's not like he's going to just sort of do whatever his partner wants because she wants it. He very much stands on his own, and as a male lead, I think that's incredibly important in romance books because more often than I would personally care to see, in order to be perceived as a good male lead, they end up being, I hate to say weak. I don't mean weak in terms of like masculinity. I mean weak in terms of character. They tend to be flat, and there tends to be like less complexity and less of them, if that makes sense. Whereas there was a lot to Justin. I feel like he was a pretty complex character. He held his own very much against Emma as a female lead, and I think that their relationship was just very well done, beautiful. He had me kicking my feet. And again, every time I say his name and remind myself that it is a J name and he's a dude with a J name, the desire to choose the bear over him comes back. But thus far, at least, Justin is winning out, which feels crazy. In spot number 2, we have 3 from Martha Wells's The Murderbot Diaries series. So how do I explain 3 without getting into spoilers? Maybe some world building. So in the world of the Murderbot Diaries, there are these constructs that are made partially of robotic material and partially of cloned genetic stuff. They are called sec units, at least the ones that we primarily follow. And despite having like a human degree of consciousness, they are considered cargo and objects and are essentially AI rent-a-cops that people can rent out in order to basically have security when they go on dangerous space missions. They belong to a thing called the company, which leaves a sort of chip in their brain called a governor module that the company can use to fry their consciousness if they, for whatever reason, do not comply. In fact, they don't have the ability to not comply because this governor module is hardwired into their neurons. Yucky and bad stuff. So that is the reality for security units, including our eponymous Murderbot, until they manage to hack or otherwise dismantle that governor module, and lo and behold, they have agency for the first time. Now, of course, there's a bunch of propaganda where humans are scared about security units hacking their governor modules and essentially going on murder rampages because you know how oppressors do. When they treat somebody in one way, they cannot foresee a future where the person that they've oppressed has come out on top and then does not enslave them in turn, because that's sort of the only dynamic that they can think of. And we know, following our eponymous Murderbot, that is not what happens when a being is given the ability to exercise their own agency and free will for the first time. Now we're getting into a little bit of spoilery territory. While you see the picture of the Murderbot Diaries up, I'm still doing spoilers about the series. Once you see it come down, you can unmute your video, or if you don't mind spoilers, just keep on listening in. But I'm talking about them now. This is your final warning. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. In a later book in the series, 3 becomes the second known security unit that has their government module completely destroyed. Basically, our buddy Murderbot gives 3 a file that shows what it's been doing since it's hacked its government module, and also gives 3 the code for doing it itself. And 3 hacks itself, and its first free action, the first thing that it chooses to do for itself, is to rescue Murderbot from a bad situation with a bunch of people who do not trust 3 at all, who have no reason to. Obviously, it's sort of a rogue agent. They don't know anything about this person. But despite the kind of general, like, slight, wary mistrust of it all, 3 decides to use what it knows to help Murderbot. It decides to help and to be kind. It names itself 3 because even when it was under control and considered property, it had 2 other sec units it was working with, and it considered them something it cared about enough to call them 1 and 2. and then it named itself in relation to them. It had friends even before it was possible for a security unit to have friends. And 3 is just learning. It's just learning how to be a person, but it already has these preferences and this interest in learning and seeing more of the world. It likes soap operas fine, but far and away it prefers to watch documentaries and read books. And while it's awkward around humans, it wants really badly to be Murderbot's friend. And it just constantly wants to be kind and friendly and learn. I think it's wonderful. I think it's sweet. I think it's the coolest guy in the whole universe. Really, there's 101 characters from this series that it could have been. Almost any named character that is not an active bad guy in the Murderbot books is worth having a crush on, but something about 3 just hooked into my awful little brain. And spot number 1, the reason I made this video in the first place. This is the new love of my life, the new light of my heart. And I've loved her for many years, but I reread her recently and she just, I don't know, she takes up every bit of my capacity for care for fictional characters and for some real people. This is Camilla Hecht from Tamsin Weir's Locked Tomb series. It's hard to talk about the series, not for fear of spoiling it, but because each book is such a tonal departure from the one that came previous to it, and also because the sort of plot of it is hard to distill. It's very much one of those things where you just kind of have to accept it and experience it yourself to understand. But sort of the impetus of everything is in the book Gideon the Ninth, which begins with a group of necromancers from all 9 houses, so 9 planets of this necromantic solar system, go with their sworn soldiers called Cavaliers to the first planet, where the necromancers are competing in a series of tests to all try to become basically necromantic saints of the undying emperor, the god of this universe, called lictors. Cam is the Cavalier, so the sworn sword of the 6th house. They are the nerdy librarian ones, which ridiculous to call them nerds because all of these necromancers are giant nerds, but that's the label put on the 6th. But she is no meek, shy librarian. She is everything. Cam is precise. She is disciplined. The only reason she is not the smartest person in any given room is because necromancers are insanely wildly smart. I do think that she probably intellectualizes many of them. I think it's truly just like Harrow, Palamedes being Cam's necromancer, and probably Abigail Pent of the 5th house, another research-heavy nerd. I think they're the only ones who outsmart Cam. In a battle of wits 1-to-1, I think she beats out just about everyone else alive. And on top of all of that, she's an incredibly adept sword fighter. There is just about nobody that can challenge her that they will not lose immediately, hands down. I think Cam is just so hot. She's just so hot. She's good at everything. She's smart. She's kind. She's loyal. Oh, Jesus. She's muscles. Swords need muscles to happen. But speaking of that loyalty, the reason that I go absolutely feral for her, the reason she is in the number 1 spot is because Camilla Hecht is perhaps the most obsessive, devoted person that I have ever read about. She is completely, devastatingly devoted to her necromancer. I'll put my hand down when the spoilers are done. She collects the fragments of Palamedes' skull after he explodes himself by giving another lictor turbo cancer. She collects the fragments of his skull and pieces them back together to the best of her non-necromantic ability so that his soul, that some part of him still has a conduit in the physical world that she can manifest and touch with. And by the end of Harrow, I think she reverses lictorhood and takes Pal's whole deal inside of her. She takes his soul and puts it in her body to share. Ma'am, the degree to which Camilla Hecht is devoted to Palamedes Sextus is something that would be just the biggest, reddest flag in the world in real life. But in this fictionalized universe where the rules are different because everything about this universe is different, it is just so sexy. I'm just obsessed with the capacity for devotion. I'm obsessed that that is the only thing that gets her to have a hair out of place, the only thing that cracks her precision and her sort of flawlessness is the degree to which she would move heaven and earth for Pal. Obsessed in love. I adore her. Maybe that speaks to something broken inside of my psyche, but I'm also an Ianthe apologist in this series, so perhaps all of my opinions here should be taken with something of a grain of salt. But this is my list, this is my video, and when I tell you that that is a good thing, you have to take my word for it. I'm obsessed with Camilla. I cannot wait for book 4, Electo, to come out. I just want her to have just the biggest part in it. I would read an entire spin-off series about Camilla the Sixth. I'm obsessed with her. Everything she does is good and right, actually. She's never done anything wrong, and I will testify to that in court as her lawful wedded wife. It would only be right and just. And now to cut myself off from just turning this into a 30-minute rant about why Camilla is the perfect woman, I am gonna cut myself off there. That is it. That is my top 5 book crushes of books that I read in 2024. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, leave me a thumbs up, and if you like me, maybe consider subscribing to my channel. I post videos on Thursdays, and I'd love to have you join my little bookish family. Comment down below if you share any of my book crushes, or if you have other ones, tell me about them. I'm always ready to become obsessed with a new fictional character, or if leaving a full comment is too much, I totally get it. Go ahead and leave me your favorite colored heart emoji to let me know that you've gotten to the end of this video. Anyways, that really is it for me. Thank you again so much for watching this video, and I'll see you with the next one very, very soon. Goodbye.